Good morning, everybody. It's sad that we have to meet again on the same subject, but thank you for coming. Let me first start with my religious requirements. The Talmud teaches us when you're someplace, you start off with honoring your host. Our host here is Pesach Tikva and Dr. Schindler, our able executive director for the past 25 years, who has built up this agency from a very small, tiny agency to huge, one of the large, maybe, I don't want to say the largest in North Brooklyn, of mental health agencies, and is working so closely with your offices of mental health. And we hope that one day the mayor and the first lady will come here to visit the facility to see what could be done and how much needed these services are. And especially in a time like this, when tragedy happens, you have to have somebody who comes and intervenes. So thank you for being the source of support for this wonderful agency. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for coming down to Williamsburg to stand shoulder and shoulder with the community while we grieve and mourn. It's difficult to talk, but last night we put to rest two precious members of our community, Moshe Deutsch and Mindel Ferenc. I hope and pray that the loud sobbing of thousands we heard while walking the coffin of Moshe, the outcry of the father ape at the funeral, the innocent and pure crying of the 11-year-old child of Mindel, crying, when am I going to see you again? I hope that this should send a message to everyone in our communities. We have to stop hate. We all have to do, we have a common goal and responsibility to stop hate, to stop violence, wherever, in whichever community it is perpetrated by anybody, it doesn't make a difference. We deeply mourn, and the community came out in droves to support the family of Detective Joseph Seals, whose children and wife lost their wonderful husband in this heinous rampage. Let us also remember, and be with us, the heroic person in the picture that is unfortunately no longer with us, and that is Douglas Rodriguez Barzullo. After being shot, he was one of the workers at the facility, at the store. After being shot, he opened the back door for a customer to be rescued. And unfortunately, he died at the footstep of that door. We send our condolences to the family, to the children, and to the mother in Ecuador. Mr. Mayor, elected officials, the law enforcement, anti-Semitism reached the most dangerous level in the New York metropolitan area. We don't remember, but it's likely the worst anti-Semitic incident that we ever experienced in our area. We in the community felt the undercurrent of anti-Semitism for a long time. and especially during the past 13 months since the terrible Pittsburgh shooting. We beseech the police department for more protection. And I have to say, and praise the local commanders, Captain Scratch of the 90th, Inspector Minch of the 79th, Inspector Esposito from PSA3, Chief Madri, Chief Harrison, Chief Monahan, Chief Molinari, who visited the community many times and not only do what they can to try and eliminate and decrease the level of crime and hatred in the community. We will continue, Mr. Mayor, we will continue to ask for more and more. We all share one thing in common, to make sure that our citizens in this great mosaic are safe. We will work together and get to the finish line. I know it's a long way to eliminate, but let's decrease it. Let's decrease the heinous crimes, and let's deal with the hatred on an ongoing basis. We also thank our elected officials standing and are always with us, and the Borough President Eric Adams, Assemblyman Joe Lentil, Senator Brian Kavanaugh, who is not here but attended yesterday the funeral, Councilman Steve Levin, and Congresswoman Velasquez Office. Evelyn is always here when we need her, and she calls us, what can we do? Mr. Mayor, as I said yesterday, and I have to repeat it, and some of you folks heard it, but I have to repeat that we will never forget, and we owe you special praise for being the one call the incident what it was. On Tuesday, before anybody was thinking about, may I say or may I not say, you said it. It's anti-Semitic crime that has to be stopped. We did not ask you to come down here. You had a press conference. You condemned that. You called on everyone to stop crime, to stop perpetrating crime. But you chose to come here with the community to show, I am here, I am with you at this terrible time. And you bring your wonderful people, the commissioner also here. There's a message to the community that with God's help, and we are going to be safe. But it's also a message to the rest of those. Don't dare commit crimes against innocent children and people. As you said it yesterday, you will be caught. We will make sure that that happens. Thank you for that. Coming down personifies what you stand for. Of course, our hearts go out for the families, and we pray that it shouldn't happen. And we believe in Hashem, in God. In the Psalms it says, He doesn't sleep, the protector of the Jewish community. But Hashem also told us that we have to do our part as well. And our part as law enforcement, our part as elected officials, and you said that yesterday, to strengthen the laws to people who break the law should be punished what they deserve. And we will do our part, working together with the greater communities. We stand here reaching out. We want to work with all of you to make sure that this does not happen again. Not in Williamsburg, not in Jersey City, not in the Jewish community, not in the Latino community, not in any community, wherever that might be, in the tri-state area and through our country, which suffers so much. Thank you for everything, and I now have the pleasure to present to you the mayor of our greatest and safest city, the city of New York.
Rabbi Niederman, as always, you speak powerfully, you speak from the heart, you speak for the people of this community. And I want everyone to understand how much pain there is right now here in Williamsburg. This horrible act of senseless violence, this act of terrorism, anti-Semitic hate, has come right home here to this neighborhood in Brooklyn and to our city. It happened across the river. But to the folks I saw when I came in here, out on the street, upstairs when we met, everyone felt like it happened right here because their loved ones were taken from them. If it happened in isolation, it would still be horrible. It is not, however, happening in isolation. There is a larger danger, and it is growing. And we have to be aware of it, and we have to confront it. Rabbi, thank you for your leadership, because people need you right now, too. And you're showing them so much heart, so much love. To everyone standing here with me, to all the community leaders, thank you. Thank you for being there for your community and for being strong. To all my colleagues, let's be clear what's happening. This is a great danger, and it is growing, and we are getting a very clear warning sign. Upstairs, meeting with these community leaders, talked about not only what people in this community are feeling right now and the pain they're going through across the community, not only the horrible pain of the families who lost their loved ones, but the specific pain that is being felt by Holocaust survivors alive in this community right now. That they are seeing history repeat itself. There's a lot of sorrow in this world and a lot of tragedy, and every community has had its tragedies. Holocaust stands out in world history as one of the single worst. Imagine if you lived through it and then thought it might happen again. Imagine what that would feel like. That is what people are feeling today in this city. Those who survived it, and I have met them, and I would say to all of you, if you have not spent time with someone who spent part of their childhood in Auschwitz or Bergen-Belsen or any of the camps, you need to understand that history and to understand that we are living with it to this day. The children of those Holocaust survivors are feeling that fear right now. But even people in the Jewish community whose families did not experience the Holocaust, whose families came here 100 years ago or more, are living in a deeper fear today. And that fear has been growing, not for just weeks, not for just months, but for years now. And it gets worse and worse. And I agree with Rabbi Niederman. That horrific moment in Pittsburgh changed everyone. And if it had ended there, maybe over time people could have healed, but it has only gotten worse since then. Incident after incident after incident. And now, right here, in our broader community, in our metropolitan area. Rabbi said something we need to reflect on. Jewish community has been large and strong in New York City and the metropolitan area for well over 100 years. This may have been, and to my memory is, the single worst attack on the community in that entire time. That should tell us something. That should have us vigilant. We spoke upstairs about the historical road that led to the Holocaust. We talked upstairs about the memories of survivors that so many people behind me are all too familiar with, and the consistent theme: those who stayed silent who should have spoken up, those who minimized the danger who should have assumed the worst. And we in leadership have to be the ones who sound the clarion call. So this is a moment to be really profoundly concerned, but history is not a teacher only of the negative. History teaches us something else, which is these horrible trends, these horrible gathering storms can be stopped if people stand up and refuse to accept the reality. That is our mission here in New York City. And we have a special responsibility as a city that I truly believe is a beacon to the world. And I truly believe has been seen by the Jewish people all over the world as one of the single most embracing, safest places for the Jewish people in their history. We need to be in the vanguard of stopping this hatred, turning the tide. And that is what we will do. I want to thank my colleagues, the elected officials who are here. You're going to hear from the borough president in a moment. I also want to thank Assemblymember Joe Lenthal, Councilmember Steve Levin for being of such support to this community. From my office, the Executive Director of the Office for the Prevention of Hate Crimes, Deborah Lauder, and my Deputy Chief of Staff, Lincoln Ressler, thank you for all you have both been doing to support the community and to end these horrible acts of hate. And from the NYPD, you'll hear from Commissioner Shea, but I want to thank Chief of Detectives Rodney Harrison, Chief of Intelligence Tom Galati, and the new Assistant Chief for the Counterterrorism Bureau, Martine Matarazzo. We depend on all of you. As you heard, the community is grateful for all you have done, and there will be much more to do going forward. And congratulations, Chief Matarazzo, on your new role, vitally important role for this city. And also a thanks to our host, Dr. Erwin Schindler, and everyone at Pesach Tikva, and I do look forward to visiting in happier times. We mourn Moshe Deutsch. We mourn Mindy Ferenc. We mourn Detective Joseph Seals and Miguel Douglas, all who were lost. Such good people taken from us. And our answer to this tragedy is to affirm we will keep people safe here in Williamsburg. We will keep people safe here in New York City. At any and all costs, we will keep our people safe. We will root out hate. We will not allow it to grow here. And you will see an increased presence from the NYPD throughout the Jewish community. You will see the actions of our hate crimes task force. You will see the actions of our new intelligence unit focused on extremism, identifying trends, preventing acts of hate. But again, even the greatest police force in the world cannot do it alone. Every single one of us must be part of this mission. Faith leaders, community leaders, elected officials of every background can and must join together, and we will gather them together in the coming days in common cause. And a reminder, that most essential thing that every New Yorker can do. Any information could be priceless, could be decisive, could save a life. If you think you see an indicator of a hate crime about to happen, call 911 or 888 NYC SAFE, whether it's anti-Semitic or directed at any other community. If you hear someone suggesting an act of hate, it's already a point where we must act. We cannot hesitate. We cannot explain it away. We cannot hope it might not happen. We have to act at that exact moment. If you hear it, we need to know it. With that, I turn to our commissioner, and he will talk more about all the police department is doing to protect this community and every community against hate.
Good morning, everyone. I stand before you as your police commissioner. I bring with me, as the mayor said, Chief Tom Galati, Chief Martin Matarazzo, Inspector, not promoted to chief yet, Mark Malinari from the Hate Crimes Unit, and many others. We come here not because we had to. We come here in solidarity. We come here not as members of your police department, but as fellow New Yorkers, to express our deepest condolences to the entire Jewish community, to express our commitment to you and to all New Yorkers to continue to root out hate and to not rest until acts such as this cowardly violence are brought to justice. So again, condolences to everyone in the Jewish community, whether it's here in Brooklyn, in Jersey City, in Pittsburgh, in Tel Aviv, all across our nation and world. I will say that what's important for us to do about this disgusting ideology of anti-Semitism and hate in general is to call it out aggressively, often, in living rooms, on street corners, wherever it is seen, and call it out clearly for what it is. I think everyone needs to do that. Not the NYPD, not members standing behind me, not the borough president or the mayor, everyone, all New Yorkers. It's critically important that we publicly recognize such intolerance. Certainly Jersey City was an act of domestic terrorism. And there's a common theme that I mentioned yesterday, and it's ignorance and it's hate at its root. But we have to remember, of course, hateful speech is not in and of itself a crime. It's repugnant, but it's not a crime. So the challenge for us in law enforcement is to see these things, to learn from them, to study them, and to take steps to prevent words from becoming physical actions. Graffiti, assaults, murders, harassment, motivated by that hate. And so we're working with our partners here in Williamsburg, in Crown Heights, in Riverdale, on the Upper East Side, all 5 boroughs, and elsewhere, to make sure that we're not only keeping people safe, but we're keeping people feeling safe. And that is the difficult task. I think of as the rabbi mentioned, the victims of this horrendous act yesterday. And I think of the impact it has on people in the communities throughout New York City and the whole metropolitan area. People that now don't feel safe walking to the corner store, walking to service. Mothers that worry about picking up their kids at school. And you start to feel the reverberation of this impact. And whether it's anti-Semitism or other forms of extremism across all motivations, our mission here is very clear. To prevent, through all legal means available to us, any act of violence before it occurs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Want you to hear from Borough President Eric Adams. He has worked very, very closely with this community, and he brings the special perspective of not only leading the borough of Brooklyn and working with all communities, but also his long service on the NYPD. He understands what we need to do to keep our communities safe. And I thank you, Borough President, for your leadership. Borough President Eric Adams.
Thank you, Mayor, and my colleagues in government who were already mentioned. When we received notification that Several members of this community were the victims of the violence that happened in New Jersey. We reflected on the reality that Brooklyn has one of the largest Jewish populations outside of Israel. And so when the question becomes, what is the Brooklyn connection? It is difficult not to have a Brooklyn connection when there is an attack on a Jewish member outside the city of New York. There's some form of Brooklyn connection. It is clear that the New York City Police Department has done so much, and we want to continue to look at the conversation around active shooters drills on what to do, initiatives around Stop the Bleed. We know that there's a body of hateful people in the country and across the globe that have identified those who go to pray, and they are preying on them. And we cannot only be passive in our attempts to protect our communities and our residents. It doesn't matter if it's a church in Carolina, if it's a Sikh temple, or if it's a synagogue. There's a body of hate that is extremely real, and we cannot ignore and act like it does not happen, and it won't continue to happen. There must be a broken window approach to hateful actions. In October, we had over 300 hateful actions of criminal magnitude in this city. Those numbers are horrific. And if we do not approach it with the same level of vigilance as the numerical minority that is participating in these forms of hateful actions, then we will fail to protect the people of this city. Anytime a young man draws a swastika and is unaware of the meaning of that swastika, we're failing on the granular level. I believe the partnership we've announced a few months ago with the ADL, it is time not to only have a surface conversation about tolerance, it is to go into our schools and utilize our Department of Education as a place of learning. These conversations should be real. We should have curriculum around tolerance. We should have real deep conversations of what it means. And when you look at the relationship in particular between the Jewish and the African American community in historical ties during the civil rights movements and other actions that have happened in this city and this country, it is imperative that we come together and create a real dialogue to our young people. Young people in Borough Park should meet young people in Brownsville. Young people in Williamsburg should meet young people in South Jamaica, Queens. We are still very much a divided country, and it is played out on how we interact with each other. And that is why we joined the ADL in putting in a numerical dollar amount, but a physical commitment to engaging and elevating the conversation and dialogue. We're going to be meeting on Monday with other faith-based leaders, because our houses of worship must be very much engaged in this. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we have become the most divided days of the week as we sit in our various houses of worship. That cannot continue to happen. Our synagogues must know about our churches, and our churches must know about our mosques and our temples, our Sikh temples. It is time to have a real granular conversation to prevent the birth of hate in this city and in this country. I am truly saddened that something like this could happen. Everyone holds their children closer after they hear about an attack of this magnitude. There were so many signs of this particular group and their signals that they sent out, that they had a hateful dialogue and a hateful manifesto. We must identify those signs early and stamp them out when we perceive them. I cannot thank the police department and the mayor and all those who have come together to continue to state that we have a zero tolerance for hate in this city. We have a zero tolerance for violence in this city, and now it's time to move this conversation to another level and how we weed out hate at the beginning. It cannot be the fruit from the poisonous tree. It must be the seed that has been planted in far too many people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Borough President. We're going to, first, Commissioner and I will take questions on the Jersey City attack and the aftermath and everything we're doing to follow up on it. We're then going to give you an update on the horrible tragedy in Morningside Heights and take questions on that, and then I will take questions on other matters. So first, anything related to Jersey City and the follow-up efforts that are being made related to it, please.
So just about the hate crimes, the increase in hate crimes, Commissioner, how many arrests have been made? So is there an arrest rate when it comes to these hate crime incidents that have happened in the city?
Yeah, so off to my right is Inspector Mark Molinari. My former job, and Rodney Harrison. Rodney is here within 10 feet of me, I'm sure, somewhere here in his current role. This is something that we look at every day. Not only the complaints coming in, but the arrests that are being made in general, not just about anti-Semitism, but against any prejudice. I can tell you that they have a high arrest rate. I cannot quote it to you, and it's a number that fluctuates on a daily basis. But we have a significant amount of arrests in dealing with these incidents of hate that come up.